Hey guys, this is 97 Lego Maniac with a custom minifigure video, and oh, sorry, that was a text from my girlfriend. Anyway, my bad. And this is another custom minifigure video, and for this, I decided to showcase my latest custom minifigures that I finished because it's relevant, and I don't want to postpone the showcase any longer like my other ones. So yeah, the people who were wondering when they saw these figures saying, "Will there be a showcase?" Of course, there's going to be a showcase. It's a dumb question. Um, I always showcase all my minifigures except like commissioned ones, the few commission ones that I may have done or figures I made for other people. I always showcase my figures, whether that be soon or many years later. You've seen my Marvel Phase 2 villains, and you know how long it will take me to make one video of them. So yeah, so here I have two minifigures from Shang-Chi. So far these are the only two minifigures I really care about making. If I were to make more, maybe I could make Razor Fist, Xiangling, and maybe Katie as well, and other characters. But as of right now, I just want to focus on these two because these two characters were the highlight. I think Shang-Chi is a really good movie. Definitely, it's probably has to be my top three favorites of MCU. I'm just really blown away at how great the cast are and how good the movie is, like an action wise, and even the story too. Because when watching the movie, I don't feel like I'm watching a Marvel movie, which is something I can't say for a lot of Marvel movies. But for this, it really stands out and it's actually different. I can appreciate it. So that's what I really like. Also, we have the best villain in the MCU, and that's Wenwu, my personal favorite villain. I think the Mandarin is fantastic. He was actually a lot cooler than I thought he was going to be. So yeah, yeah. Some people, one person might disagree with me and take that one thing on Instagram post very seriously when I'm just saying that he's just personally my favorite villain because of he is, and so many people say he is because there's reason why people like things, and talk about it and why Gwen was a good villain. But rant aside, that's so rants aside, let's move on to these two figures. One of the coolest figures I've ever made because of a bunch of other accessories I made with it. So we'll take a look at that. So the first main figure we have is the main character himself, Shang-Chi. Uh, I think Simu Liu did a great job. I've seen him in other things. Well, just one thing, and that was Kim's Convenience. It's a funny Korean Canadian not sitcom, like a comedy show on Netflix. They have like plenty of seasons there, and he's in it. He plays like the elder Korean brother, and I think he nails the role pretty well. Even though he's not even Korean, the dude's Chinese, but he portrayed like a Korean stereotype like pretty well in my opinion. And he did it in such a funny way, and I love his interaction with the other cast members. Like especially with like the father, the mother, and the sister and all that. It's just so relatable, man. So yeah, starting off with like the from I always go from like from top to bottom for all my minifigures. I went with like the new 52 new Superman hairpiece was introduced in the Batman v Superman sets, and this hair is extremely useful. I think it works well for Shang-Chi. If I were to go overboard, I would have sculpted my own hair because it's not entirely like this, but it is close enough at the end of the day. And for the head, well, I decided to go with a nougat flesh color because if there's one thing I have to criticize Lego about, it's they don't have enough skin tone variety. Like their skin tone palette is very, very limited. I definitely did not want to make him light nougat and make him look white. I definitely didn't want to go with that route. So this was like the pretty much the closest option. And some people might be like, "Oh, why does he look Mexican?" I don't know why that kind of sounds racist. I don't know. It just sounds really weird to me. Anyway, so but like dark skinned Asians do exist, and I know there's light skinned Asians. I guess you could pass off with this color. I'm just not a fan of it, of using that color for Asian people because it's just like Asians are less represented in media and in toys and stuff like that. And if you want to showcase like cool diversity and stuff like that, I think you should like open up to like new face prints or new skin tones and stuff like that and experiment with them. And I think that's what Lego should do in my opinion if they were to move forward with like more licensed products. And that has like different diverse cast of people. I think that's what they should have done. And for the head, what I did, I ended up I really like this head that this this guy on Instagram called Figs Art made. His is a little. I took some basic inspiration, such as like the overall the shape of the mouth, maybe. He put stubble on his. I went with stubble on mine, even though he does have stubble in the movie. Like Simu Liu does have a little bit of a stubble. I don't know if it'll look good on a minifigure if I were to paint it. So I just decided to just not paint that. So yeah. For the torso, completely painted. Everything else is pretty much completely painted by me. And what's so cool about this, you can kind of see it in the reflection. I went with like a gloss red paint, and I used a toothpick to paint all those scales. So that way, so it's not just like your standard like red suit. I wanted to add some detail to it. So I added like a little bit of red dots like all over this figure to make it look like he has dragon scales. And yeah, and his pants are really generic. He wears his Jordans, you know. Nothing really cool about the legs, which is fine because it's really just a suit. That's all you need. And for his staff, I went with like the those Loki staff that we get. I cut off both ends of that, and I carefully glued it onto a like a rod piece. And you have to be careful in gluing these because on this material, the ends are kind of waxy. So glue probably won't make this stay on for that long. I glued it on and I left it alone on like a random minifigure base for days until it and I would coat, and then once that's done, I coat around that with glue, so that way I'll make sure that this will never snap off so easily, because waxy Lego parts never can stay on glue. So yeah, so there we have his staff. So yeah, that's all good. That's all cool. And I did give him like other accessories as well. Like I'll show you guys right now. So the cool thing I made for Shang-Chi, well first I want to get this one out of the way. It's the base. If you guys remember that scene in the movie, it's also in the trailer as well. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's in the trailer, I promise. When it teases like the final battle when Wenwu and Shang-Chi are fighting, and they each have like 5 sets of rings. There's a scene when he pretty much takes the 5 pairs, they glow orange and they circle around him. So that's what pretty much represents what I'm trying to represent here. This base is actually a Frozone base from the Lego minifigure series, and what I did for each of these rings. You can see like these are the lower ring, and you can see that in the middle they're painted orange, but they're also, you can notice they're kind of caved in. What I did, I put these on the Dremel, so while the rings are like spinning rapidly, I got a little chisel, a little file piece, and I carefully placed them, and I carefully like sanded the outside of the rings while it's spinning. So that, and I did that for all 20 rings. You'll see all the rest of the rings, like what I've done later in this video. So yeah, and I glued them onto fiber optics, so it looks like they're floating. So yeah, and they're circling around Shang-Chi. Now that we got this base out of the way, I also made this here. What this is a set of crazy arms. This is from the javelin arm piece. This is from the archer piece. And for his legs, I did a lot of cutting. Like I think I used like 4 a total, like 2 pairs of black legs in total to make this. So I cut like the foot off of one, and I cut the legs on an angle, and I glued them onto this side here. And for the other foot that I cut off, I then cut that in an angle, and I glued it onto the first pair of leg that I cut here. So yeah, so it's a lot of cutting, and also sculpting as well. I had to sculpt like the transition between these 2 pieces. I think these were from the same leg, but because there's like a gap here, I had to like sculpt over that, and I had to sand that out and file it to make sure it looks like a good transition. You can kind of see it's not entirely perfect, but it gets the job done. And when I have them in this position, how you would use the crazy arms, first you need to take out the arms of the torso. I'm going to take off the hands as well. Move these arms out of the way, and move this leg out of the way. And I'm going to take these pieces here. This is how you would assemble your crazy arms. You place these, and you slide your torso in, just like that. And then you plug in your little crazy arm. I'm going to plug in the hand of this here, so it's just a bit easier. And once you're done, there you have Shang-Chi in his kung fu pose. And that's pretty much my main inspiration of making these figures. I didn't want to just make, standard Lego minifigs. I want to do something creative. I want to give them accessories, and I want to give them like character poses, because it's a running trend in our community nowadays to make statue figures, and they're freaking amazing. If you guys seen like Jared Fix like stuff like Jared's work on My Hero Academia, or you've seen like other people when they make like statue like figures, it's a work of art, and I wanted to challenge myself to try that for the first time, and I thought it would be perfect for Shang-Chi. So yeah, you can have him like doing some kung fu poses. You can have like holding the staff. You can also use these arms again and replace them and still keep the legs. And so yeah, for the master of kung fu, it makes perfect sense to give him like kung fu poses. Am I right? So yeah, that's pretty much it for Shang-Chi. We're gonna move on to our last figure. All right, we're moving on to our last figure. Up next, we have my personal favorite villain, Wenwu. He surprised me a lot in this film. I expect him to be just like a stoic bad guy who's so hell-bent of dominating the world, and he wants his son to stay by his side. But no, I actually like what they did with this character. In fact, I'm so hesitant to call him a villain, because he doesn't really act like a villain. Like, sure, he was a villain in the past because a millennium ago, and he lived for like thousands of years. He was like conquering worlds, but you can tell like through his facial expressions, through Tony Leone's like acting, like the dude's unsatisfied. Like he has all this power, but he's just so, I don't know. He never feels satisfied about it until what happened like later in his life. I'm not gonna spoil the movie. I'm not gonna say anything just in case. But yeah, but until that turning point, he was like, oh, maybe there's something for me to grow old, so I can grow old. I don't have to be immortal. I don't need all this wealth, all this power. Maybe it's not that necessary for me. So and his turn to go back to it, I thought was very relatable. I think it's very, you can understand where he's coming from. And to be honest, I couldn't imagine anyone else making the same mistakes or do the things that he would do if they were in his position. So yeah, I really like that. I really like that they made a sympathetic villain. I like it when Marvel does that. You have Killmonger, who's also a sympathetic villain, because you see his story. You see, in a way, you could say Thanos is a sympathetic villain in a way, because his motivations are motivated by the love of his race or stuff like that, and then he didn't want he didn't want other populations to go through the same thing that his race experienced. I guess in a way you can call him sympathetic villain, but it's more twisted in a way. But for Wenwu, it's more grounded, and for Killmonger, it's more grounded. So I like it when Marvel does something like that, when they give their villains character. So yeah, and that's how I felt with like the Mandarin. He's not really what I expected, and I honestly was very satisfied. For his hair, just kind of funny because just like Shang-Chi, it's a Superman hair, but this is a classic Superman hair with a curl cut off, and I just like carved out a little front here to mask that, like this little hairline here. His head, I painted that. Again, based this off of like Fig's art, because I think he did a great job like in capturing likeness on characters. I go follow him, by the way. And as for his torso, I went with like an E-tape for the shoulder. I also sculpted like dry pieces of Procreate, and I cut them up into little squares and I glued them. I did the same thing for like the front waistcape here. I have this waistcape here which I made by my own fabric. All this blue piece here is also fabric too. I also wrapped E-tape around his belt, and this other separate piece of E-tape on the sides. And his shoes painted. And the coolest things about this guy are his rings. This was very difficult to do because trying to fit all 5 rings into each arm is pretty difficult. But what I ended up doing was I sculpted 4 rings on each arm, and for each hand, then I sculpted the 5th ring. So that way, it looks like he actually does have all 5 rings. Now, the downside to this, when I put him in the same character poses, like dynamic pose as like Shang-Chi, it's gonna look like he has the set of 12 rings, because I'm pretty sure I do have like extra black hands, but I don't want to use it. I want to save it for other characters, so I am reusing these hands, so it looks like he has extra set of rings on the hands, even though it's not supposed to be like that. So yeah, and to go over his accessory, I remember getting this for free from a Brick Forge or a Brick Warriors order long time ago, and I never used this. Who knew that like many years down the line, this could be perfect for like a 10 rings soldier, you know, because they have these glowy energy blades, which I assume is made of the same. They used the technology of the rings and transfer it into the weapons somehow because they all glow blue, you know. So yeah, even though he doesn't wield a sword, I just think it's really cool to have him. Maybe I'll make a 10 rings soldier to go with him, and they'll hold his sword. But yeah, it's really cool. This piece was so useful. Like I had no idea I would use this many years later down the line. And his other accessories I have are these ring pieces because you know he can like pretty much blast these rings out of his arms like he's from an anime. That's the one thing I really like about Shang-Chi is like it feels like you're watching a live action anime, and I feel like a Dragon Ball movie is really possible because of Shang-Chi. So yeah, you can have those. And what I did, I used like a clear like a rod. I use a Lord of the Rings rings, and I did the same thing with Dremel in the middle again. And I went with hot glue to create these like energy effects. Manipulating hot glue like this is not easy. It is extremely difficult. But when you get it right, it looks right, and it doesn't have to look clean at the end of the day because it's just random energy pieces. It doesn't have to look super clean, so you can just mess with it however you want. So yeah, and that's pretty much Wenwu, and I can show you guys his pose and this other cool accessory. So just like Shang-Chi, I gave Wenwu a set of action legs as well. I pretty much did the same thing, just get like two pairs of black legs. I cut them off. I cut off the foot off of one, and then I cut off the bottom of the second one, and I glue them all together. I have to like sculpt them as well to fill in the gaps. Wenwu was a little bit trickier, I think, because this foot angle was a little bit tricky to get right. So yeah, and yeah, you can, and that was really cool to do. Removing the crazy arms, it's from the same piece, like the javelin and the javelin arm and the archer arm, but these don't have rings on them because for a specific reason. And I also like made a second waist cape, but I slightly modified it compared to the first one, so it works for this leg only. So just like Shang-Chi, you're gonna have to take out his body parts, take them all off. And next, take out these little pegs from the crazy arms. We're going to take out his hands as well. Leave the arms, leave the standard legs to the side, and we're going to place this torso in carefully. It's okay if this like flares out because like it kind of makes it more dynamic in my opinion. So yeah. And there you have like Wenwu in his kung fu pose as well. For this arm, it's a little bit difficult because the shoulder kind of gets in the way. So what I usually do, I just leave a little gap here. So yeah, there we have Wenwu in his kung fu pose as well. And I made another cool accessory for this guy, and it's this. Like I based this off like the Hot Toys. When you have like the rings like kind of flowing in a circle, and because he kind of uses this thing as like kind of like a whip, and you see this thing just like kind of like whipping around. So what I like to do, take out this hand. I wanted to make this like a loop that wraps around the hands, but because the ring is kind of in the way, I just decided to sacrifice my other black hand for this purpose. So yeah, so you can have like Wenwu doing some sick kung fu moves with the ring swirling around. So that's another way I can display this figure. But there's one thing I like displaying my figures on. And it's this cool rings piece meant for both Wenwu and Shang-Chi. So I did the same thing with with the rings. I dremeled the center and I painted all the rings individually with using the trans orange and blue paint that I get on Amazon. And what I did, I connected this all with fiber optics and I glued them. I made sure that both sides are different. For Shang-Chi, it's more streamlined, more clean. more uniform, and there's like a little bit of energies, like spiking out from the ring. But for Wenwu's, it's all like static, like it's all like it's dynamic, and there's a bunch of electricity. It's more chaotic. It kind of represents the two sides. So yeah, and I'm gonna show you guys what they look like when you display them. And once you connect these two characters together, there you have a really cool dynamic display piece for Shang-Chi and Wenwu. And yeah, the only downside is this piece likes to separate a lot, so I have to continue fixing it because it's not really supported by fiber optics. It's actually supported just by strands of hot glue. So I'm gonna have to fix that. But when you have them when you connect them together, you can't really tell that it's actually broken. You know, it just looks like it's all connected. So yeah, and the different, I try and make sure it's accurate as possible to how they usually pose it, because Shang-Chi, like, he has the ring up here, and the way he holds his rings like this, and the way Wenwu does it, it's more, it does not mirror Shang-Chi in a way, but it's different there, you know what I mean? And even their leg poses are different too. So I try and make sure I capture what was on screen and translate that into Lego. And I think I did a great job. I did a pretty good job there. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I really did my best to make sure like this would be the selling point of my Shang-Chi figures. Like I didn't want to just make standard minifigures. I wanted to do something more. And I'm glad you guys liked it on Instagram. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my Shang-Chi figures. I really like how this turned out. I'm definitely gonna leave my figures in display like this. I'll probably put it on my display shelf somewhere. But yeah, this is like the definitive like Shang-Chi minifigure in my mind, like how I envisioned it to be. And I'm really glad that I was able to make it the way I wanted, and it worked out pretty well. And I really like it. So yeah, we're gonna conclude this video, guys, and thank you guys so much for watching. This was a really fun side project I wanted to do. If I wanted to do like, since I already made Wenwu, he was like a Phase 4 villain, and and I'm still working on Phase 3 Marvel villains. I don't know when I'm going to be done with that. Probably in the next 5 years. Let's be honest. But if I were to go back and then finish my Marvel Phase villains, and then when I move on to Phase 4, I might make a different version of Wenwu. Yeah. So, or maybe I'll make a version 2 if I feel like I'm improved enough to make a new one. So we'll see. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.